Hi. The objective of this lesson is to actually create the Jenkins job that we're going to use to run the development runway. So the first thing I do is I'm going to go to New Item, and then I'm going to enter a name, and the name we're going to call this is Feeling Tracker Dev Build. And this is a freestyle project. I'm going to go OK. And then I'm going to put in a description, and I'm not going to have you suffer through my typing. I'm going to cut and paste this. And then I'm going to say, look, Jenkins, I want you to run this job on the Windows slave server. And if you remember from earlier lessons, I named the Windows slave server, when I set up the slave server, Windows build server. And again, now you can see that Jenkins is recognizing it, and that's good. Okay, so it says, okay, I'll run on the Windows server for you. I can do that. So I'm going to say, okay, by the way, Jenkins, I want you to get the demonstration application, which is in GitHub, at this URL. And you don't need to use any credentials because it's a public URL. The other thing I'm going to tell Jenkins to do is I'm not going to say use the master branch. Rather, I want you to use the development branch. Because remember, the whole point of all of this exercises is that, is that every branch will have its own particular build process. And so development's going to run one way, staging is going to run another way, and master, which is user acceptance testing, is going to build in a third and final way. So I'm saying now, Jenkins, use the development branch. This is the runway for the development build. This is the Jenkins job for the development build. And I'm going to tell Jenkins, okay, do me a favor, go out to GitHub every 15 minutes and look for changed code. And now I'm going to start building. Now, this is important. I'm going to build, and I'm going to use Windows batch commands, because remember, even though I'm configuring this on the Linux Jenkins master, this job is going to run on a Windows machine. So I need to talk in terms of Windows, which is execute Windows batch command. I'm going to say, okay, first of all, Jenkins, go tell node or under npm to run the install command, which gets the dependency packages for the sample web application. And then I'm going to say, okay, another command is Jenkins tell npm to go up against the source code, the node source code, and run the unit tests, which I made previously. And then I'm going to say, okay, that's good. What I want you to do now is I want you to use MS Build to build the Ranorex solution. And remember, Ranorex is a Windows product, and the way it works is that it builds an executable that it runs against the test file. So in this case, I'm going to use the RoboPC build instance of MS Build that I configured previously under the MS Build plugin in Jenkins. And then, because I happen to know this, I'm going to say, okay, the solution file to build can be found in the GitHub code under the Ranorex subdirectory, feeling tracker test, and then run, and here's the solution file. And your solution file will be in a completely different location. The important part here is that we're telling Jenkins to tell MS Build to build the code. Okay, and so there we go with that. And that's good. And now, after the code is built, I'm going to issue another Windows command. And I'm going to say, okay, use the forever npm package, which I installed previously when I created the Windows slave server, and use it to start the node demonstration application in the background. So forever start app.js will start the node application in the background. And the reason we want to do this is if we start the node application here, it'll just block out the build completely, and then we'll just spin forever. So we start node in the background, the node app in the background. And that's good. Then the next thing I need to do is I need to tell Ranorex, okay, I'm going to say, Ranorex, what I want you to do now is I want you to run your rxtst file, run the rxtst file, which is associated with this test. And I happen to know it's here in the debug folder, because what will happen is when MS Build builds the .NET project, the .NET executable, it'll dump everything into the debug subdirectory under bin, and part of that dump will be the rxtst file. which you'll find here. The other thing I need to do is I'm going to give it this test a report name, and I'm going to call it basic report, just because I can and because I like customization. And the other thing I'm going to do is tell our Ranorex to issue the JUnit compatible report after it runs its testing, because we're going to use that in a post-build event. So I do that, okay, and that's all happy. Then the last thing I do is I'm going to be a good citizen, and I'm going to tell Windows, by the way, get rid of any instance of Node that's running. And the reason I'm doing this is because if I run the build a second time and Node is running on localhost :3000, the demonstration web application is not going to be able to fire up. It'll just error out. So I got to clean up after myself, and I need to kill Node and make sure that all goes away. And that's good business. So I'm going to do that. Then the last thing I need to do is build in to put in the publish JUnit, because I do want to get my test results. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to, again, declare a post-build action. I'm going to put in the location where I do know that Ranorex will dump the JUnit.xml file, and it will be under a basic report. And this is an error. This happened to me a couple times, but it's real important that you name, let me go to Ranorex, that the name of your report file name match up in the URL. And I've messed up a couple times and not done that, but it's important that you do. So let's review what I did before we move on to actually running the project. I created the project. I gave it a happy description. Importantly, I said, okay, Jenkins, run this job on the external Windows server. It's another machine completely out there. And then I said, okay, use the source code found in get for the demonstration application. That's the application under test. And get, please use the code in the development branch. So everything's going to happen against development. I put in a build trigger. I didn't put in any build trigger, excuse me. But what I did do is I said, okay, no, I did put in a build trigger. Duh, shows you what I know. Please go out to GitHub every 15 minutes and see if there's a change. And then I started doing my builds. I said, okay, go npm install as a Windows batch command. Jenkins, please go to the Windows server and execute npm install, which will get the dependent packages for the Node application. Run the internal unit tests that are in the source code. And then I said, okay, now Jenkins, tell MS Build to build the Ranorex test solution, which is right here. And then I said, okay, start the Node demonstration application in the background using forever. Then I said, okay, Ranorex, now it's time for you to do your thing. I want you to start up and run the tests as they're defined in the tracker Ranorex test rxtst file, which are defined previously, and you can see those in the GitHub repo. By the way, when you issue your JUnit compatible report, give it the name basic report somewhere in the file description. I did that. I said, okay, Windows clean up, shut down all the nodes. So next time we run it, we'll run it without an error, kill all the nodes. And then finally, I said, okay, in a post-build action, Jenkins, please go look for the JUnit compatible report XML at this location, and that will appear in the UI. So the next thing is we're going to run the job and see the results of the report in the Jenkins UI. So let me save this. And then it's time for the run.